29th Planning Board meeting to order. First on the agenda, approval of the minutes.
Madam Chair, I ask that we table the minutes of April 15th, 2014.
Do I have a second for the table?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next is approval not required plans. The first on it is the applicant Matthew and Sarah Weeks and Jacqueline Owens to annex a portion of Lot 1 to Lot 2, located at 278 and 282 Trotting Park Road, East Falmouth. And is there anyone here for the applicant? Please go up to the podium, state your name.
I'm Matt Weeks of 282 Trotting Park.
I'm Jacqueline Owens of 278 Trotting Park Road.
And do you want to give us a little bit of a description as to what you're doing, or? I went into the planning office, so I've gone over it. Or has everybody seen it, and do you have any questions?
I haven't seen it until now.
Okay. We don't have a plan up there.
Well, I'll put this
Oh, you have one? Okay. There are push pins, so if you can just put that up, maybe to this side of the easel, I think that's how. Pardon?
Yeah, the other side.
I think the other side, because we have the television, so if you can put it over there, because then they can focus on it. Great, thank you. If you could just go over what you're planning to do, please.
Sure. So Jackie owns 278 Trotting Park. It's 5 acres, 5.43 acres, and 2 acres of that is underneath the Star right-of-way power lines, easements. I'm over here at 282. I have 1.86 acres for both the frontage on Trotting Park Road. So Jackie's not utilizing this space right now, so I would like to farm it. It's good soil for the cave. And so we're hoping to annex 2 acres of unbuildable lot to my 1.86 acres.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board?
Nope.
Okay. Then I need a motion.
I move we approve.
We endorse
Endorse.
the plan.
I'll
Is there a
second.
second? It's been moved and seconded that we endorse this plan in front of us. All in favor? Oh, Ralph, you had a
I
question?
just wonder if there are any comments from the staff.
No, there weren't.
No, sir. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained. Thank you. The applicant is the Roman Catholic Bishop of Fall River to annex an unbuildable parcel of 11,203 square feet from 167 East Falmouth Highway to 153 East Falmouth Highway. And for the applicant, please. It's that one.
Good evening, my name is John Doyle, and I'm here to represent the Roman Catholic Bishop of Fall River and the adjoining property owner, Roy Clement. This property is in East Falmouth. I think everybody knows where St. Anthony's Church is. It's east of Acapesket Road and west of Green River. It's on the south side of 28. The church owns about 35.5 acres there, which runs back to the south side of the cemetery, Casey's Way. They have, through discussions, decided to sell this 50-foot strip by 225 feet. It's about 11,000 square foot lot you see as Lot 1 on the plan to the adjoiner, Mr. Clement. And this plan is before you for you to endorse that it is not a subdivision. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer.
Are there any questions from the board?
Is there a change of zoning?
There is no proposed zoning change.
Okay.
Maybe someday down the line, but no.
Okay.
It has to do with a septic system component.
I see.
Anyone else have questions? Okay, then I would need a motion to endorse.
So moved.
Is there a second on the
Second.
endorsement? Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I just wondered if the staff has any comments.
No, I've already gone in earlier today, so I know they don't.
It's fine.
I
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take the Drew application out of order since it is just simply a decision. May I have a motion to do so?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. The decision, the applicant is David Drew, preliminary plan to subdivide 4.98 acres into 4 lots located at 85 and 97 Brick Kiln Road, East Falmouth. And who would like to read the decision?
I will, if you like.
Go ahead.
Where did I find it? Okay, April 24th, 2014 draft preliminary plan, David Drew. Motion that the planning board vote the following recommendations to address the issues raised under the subdivision regulations of the town of Falmouth. Article 3, preliminary plans for a plan entitled Preliminary Subdivision Plan prepared for Drew Meadows, prepared by Stephen Doyle and Associates, dated March 23rd, 2013, scale 1 inch equals 40 feet. Number 1, a list of waivers from the planning board's rules and regulations governing the subdivision of land must be included as part of the definitive plan application. 2, the applicant's attention is directed to the board's rules and regulations concerning width of layout, construction standards, and the imposition of town water to all lots, together with the provision of a fire hydrant at the end of the way. Typically, the planning board requires a hardened roadway surface for the number of lots proposed here, 4. However, the board usually allows for a reduction in the width of the traveled way anywhere from 14 to 16 feet and suggests the same here. Minimum curb return radii should be maintained at Brick Kiln Road given travel speeds along this roadway. A grass path may substitute here for a sidewalk. Drainage details and calculations should accompany the definitive plan application. The layout proposed way should incorporate parcels A and B to the maximum extent feasible. We alert the applicant to the prohibition of reserve strips, so-called, under the board's rules and regulations. Number 4, the applicant is encouraged to consider the installation of septic systems with enhanced nitrogen removal given the proximity to Great Pond. Number 5, the applicant is encouraged to minimize the requested waiver for length of dead-end road.
Is there a second?
Second?
It's been moved and seconded, yes.
Typographical error, Madam Chairman, under condition number 2, second sentence, the word imposition should be the word installation.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? Yes, Bob?
Yeah, just one comment. The grass path may substitute here for a sidewalk. Is there any way we could ensure that no infrastructure goes there, like sprinkler systems or things like that? Because we've run into that problem before. That has to be a given width of the typical sidewalk where nothing can be placed there by a homeowner?
You can always condition your approval as such, but typically speaking, if folks put their sprinkler heads in the right-of-way and they sprinkle their lawns. I think the example I'll show you later on is we allowed for such a sidewalk or grass strip for people to walk by Kid Cutter Road, with the Kid Cutter condominium. And that's the typical cross-section I think I'll refer the Steve Doyle Associates to utilize. whether you can impose a condition. You've always imposed the condition of sprinklers, but it's hard to enforce.
Paul?
The draft decision says that the travel way may allow for a reduction 14 to 16 feet. The drawing has a required waiver requesting a roadway width of 20 feet reduced to 18. Why we come up with less than what they're proposing in the drawings?
Travels away, what they propose is from back of berm to back of berm, 18 feet. You're looking at a traveled way where the car can actually travel somewhere between 14 and 16 feet. You would add a foot for your Cape Cod berm. So let's say you said you could have a 16-foot traveled way, that would be 18 feet back of berm to back of berm, my understanding. If you want to impose a larger right-of-way or a larger construction standard, again, as a preliminary decision, you can always do that at the definitive stage.
Is the pavement width the travel way?
The traveled way is those, let's say it's a 9-foot lane and a 9-foot lane, and then you have a Cape Cod berm and a Cape Cod berm. So the traveled way is actually, you don't typically drive up on the Cape Cod.
I just want to make sure it's not inconsistent with what's in the drawings, that's all.
That's fine.
Ralph?
I have a question for Brian. In number 2, where we speak about the reduction for the width of the traveled way, shouldn't it be allows for a reduction in width of the traveled way anywhere to 14 to 16 feet? We're not allowing them to reduce it by 14 or 16 feet. So the word "to" should be in there. And number 2, I have a concern about the sidewalk also. I have a feeling that it could easily become overgrown over time and not be available as a sidewalk. So I would like to ask the planning board to consider some kind of an amendment that would ensure that it would be maintained. And so, since this is a preliminary plan, maybe we could ask the applicant to provide us a plan on how it will be maintained. So I would offer a motion that after the sentence "as a grass path may substitute here for a sidewalk," the applicant should provide the planning board with a plan to maintain such a sidewalk.
And that's your motion.
That's a motion.
Is there a second for that?
Okay, I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there further comment? Rich?
Do we require this when somebody puts in a concrete sidewalk?
Concrete sidewalks don't get
Doesn't
overgrown.
No, but they crack, they have frost heaves, they become much more dangerous than an overgrown grass sidewalk. And we don't require developers to do that. I mean, my God, look at Walker Street, the street that I live on. Try walking down from Main Street down to Prospect Street on that sidewalk. Much worse than any overgrown grass sidewalk ever could be. I mean, I'm very leery of putting in ongoing conditions on subdivision plans that don't really conform to what we can do under subdivision plans. So,
Jim?
Is this a private way? So as a private way, wouldn't all the landowners be responsible for maintaining it?
yes.
I'm asking Brian.
If there's a homeowners association, otherwise, since it's a private way, others, the lot owners have rights to pass and repass. If the board is struggling with it, then, remember, this is guidance,
Right.
These are recommendations, it's a preliminary decision. You may want to put a caveat in there that says, however, the board is concerned with regards to maintenance and reserves the right to alter its judgment as the definitive plan process evolves. So alert them that, yes, we've looked at these types of strips in the side of the right-of-way for, essentially, you notice we call it a path, too, not a side. But the board has concerns with regards to maintenance, and if they can provide some information how that might occur, the board would appreciate it.
Is that satisfactory to you, Ralph?
No,
Okay,
no, it's not. I'm not withdrawing my motion.
okay. Is there any further comment on Ralph's motion?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I share Ralph's concern, because, you know, here we have bylaws about sidewalks and things like that, and we just had an instance where residents came back about something that wasn't done or was done, and I don't want to see people coming back, 10 years from now complaining about something that we stated that a grass path should substitute for a sidewalk here, but if it doesn't become a grass path, I don't know, I just want to try and prevent something from occurring further down the line.
Just information for the board. Just information for the board for your discussion. Is that back in 1996, the board came up with a policy and voted this policy with regards to sidewalks, because it's always been a struggle for the board for literally decades. Some people love them, some people, Charlie would never have a sidewalk in any subdivision. Any subdivision over 10 lots would require a sidewalk. The board typically never waived it. Under 10 lots, the board would then, on a case-by-case basis, typically the number of lots, the length of the road, the nature of the neighborhood, would then look at some sort of sidewalk, yes, no. If yes, then you get into the determinations of materials and the durability of those materials. Just for the background for the board. It's been a struggle for the board.
Rich?
Bob, what recourse do the neighbors have, or the customers who buy, the homeowners have, when a concrete sidewalk gets all thrown up with frost heaves? What recourse is there? Do they come back to us?
No, but they have come back to us about drainage issues.
Drainage issues are different.
Well, it's an issue, an issue is an issue.
No, drainage issues,
And I
they do come back,
understand.
and what recourse do we even have then? If we were to have a bylaw change, consistent with what we can do under the state law, then I think a reasonable bylaw would be, if you're gonna get the waiver, you have to have a homeowners association, and with that homeowners association, they have to show us a maintenance compact. Well, that would work fine, but I don't think that we can just willy-nilly just say that this is how it's gonna be, because we don't do that with concrete sidewalks, and it's what, personally, I think a gravel sidewalk would be better than a concrete sidewalk.
Yeah.
And wouldn't have the problems of getting overgrown. But we're talking about a 4-lot subdivision, and you would think if it's important to the neighbors in the subdivision that they be able to have a sidewalk, they would just get together and do it.
Jim?
If it's
I
not-
think we should leave it up to the applicant to come back with a solution for this issue.
Well, I think that's all we're doing, is asking the applicant to have a solution. So I agree with it.
Yeah, I mean, he's heard our concerns, and,
Maybe he will choose to put gravel.
Ralph?
Yeah, we're not talking about sidewalks, we're talking about a path.
Right.
And they've already asked for a waiver on the sidewalk. So we're not talking apples and oranges here.
Okay, has everybody had their say on Ralph's amendment? Okay,
no,
go ahead.
The problem with Ralph's amendment is we become an enforcement agency, and that's not our role. Because how do we ensure that these things are carried out in perpetuity? We can't. We can't. So I think it does fall back on the applicant to prove to us that there is a way that our concerns can be met.
Okay. Ralph, the exact wording of your amendment was what, please? I wrote my own paraphrase. of
I'll
it.
ask the recording secretary to read it back.
It says, after the grass pathway may substitute for a sidewalk, we wanted to add, the applicant should provide a plan to show us how they're gonna maintain it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Since I wasn't here when this plan was brought up, I am abstaining from the votes in regard to the board's votes on this. But since everyone's had their say now, I'd like a vote on Ralph's amendment that you've just heard, or read back. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed.
Opposed? Okay, so we've got 4 in favor, 2 opposed, and 1 abstention. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Now we go back to the original, now amended motion. Are there further comments on the motion? Okay, then all in favor of the motion as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I abstain. Thank you.
Okay.
And I do need a motion to go back to the original
So
agenda
moved.
order.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Next on the agenda is discussion. The applicant is the Woods Hole Golf Club, site plan review modification to erect a maintenance building on 4.92 acres located at 161 Quistit Avenue, Woods Hole. For the applicant. Oh, you've got notices. Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, there was one abutters notice, was sent by registered mail on April 18th, 2014. It's published in the Falmouth Enterprise on April 18th and April 25th, 2014.
Thank you.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Tom Bunker with BSS Design. We prepared this plan, site plan for the Woods Hole Golf Club. We also have several other representatives in the audience here if you have any questions of them. The plan was approved. We filed a site plan back in December of last year. It was approved. Now we're revising it. Originally, this building was pulled forward. It overlapped the front of this other building somewhat, and there was a bay of parking in behind it. For various reasons, we wanted to push the building back and fit parking up in the front. Among them, with the grading, because of the tall wall, foundation wall, that could be reduced excavation in the back. Less volume taken out. There's also more room to work here, where this building is no longer overlapping the other building. There's a doorway right here. So it makes the movement for the maintenance and storage better in this area. Security at nighttime, if there's any nighttime parking, is a little better. Rather than having parking isolated behind the building, all the parking will be in the front, and actually will require less lighting because there'll be no lighting in the back to shine toward here. There'll just be some lighting mounted on the building going toward the parking. It also allowed this access up to the golf course itself, a cart path, to be graded a little less steeply than it would have needed otherwise. As it always has been, the access driveway to Quistit Avenue is not changing. That's here. The general layout of the disturbed area, certainly from the plan that was approved, has not changed. What's happening is that there was always parking here. Some parking here is where the building used to be. And then there's some storage bins that on the approved plan were going to be moved around a little bit. And now they're going to be moved around, so they're consolidated along this side here. We're actually sort of at the base of the bank, so they're actually less visible from Quistit Ave. And then there's the additional parking, if it's needed, be over in this location here. There's adequate room. We still have that large diameter on the site for truck turning and when they're delivering materials or whatever. So actually it still works quite well, perhaps even better than the original site plan. Referrals I saw from the engineering and the fire department have no issues with these minor changes. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Paul?
Mr. Bunker, do I understand there's a 20-foot high retaining wall near that building?
No, on the original one, it was 20 feet. What happened was actually the retaining wall itself is not very high at all. There's that wall has been put in, it's probably only about 6 feet high, and then it's a cut slope that can be, currently it has mulch on it, that can be revegetated.
It looks like it's 94 in existing grade and 74 in the finished grade.
We drew on where the wall is now, but I don't have all of the contours. It does go from those elevations, but the wall is not all the way up there. There are the cut contours come back in up to here, probably about where the 94 is or something. It's not a 20-foot high wall.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Looks fine to me.
Okay. If everyone is satisfied with this change in plans, the modification to plans, we can certainly take a vote tonight. So I would just simply need a motion that we approve the site plan modification.
I move that we approve the site plan modification of Woods Hole Golf Course.
Any,
I'll second that.
okay, it's been moved and seconded. And I'll ask for further discussion or further questions if there are any.
No, it seems like a sensible change to me.
Yeah, it does. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained.
Thank you.
Thank you. We move on. The applicant is Ryan Development LLC. Site plan review to erect a mixed-use building consisting of 3,000 square feet of retail space and 2 second-story apartments on .68 acres, along with associated parking, drainage, and landscaping, located at 587 Main Street and 17 and 18 Nye Road.
Madam Chair, there were 12 abutters notices were sent by regular mail on April 18th, 2014. Publishing dates in the Enterprise were April 18th and April 25th of 2014.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Joe Pesnola from Hancock Associates. With me tonight is Mr. Robert Walker from Ryan Development. And we're here for site plan review for 587 Main Street, 17 and 19 Nye Road. The existing property is .68 acres. It currently has a vacant lot on the 587 Main Street site. It's a gravel parking area. Sometimes, in summertime, I think it's used for a food van, a food trailer. 1719 is residential. There's two residential dwellings there that are rental units. The proposal would redevelop the entirety of the property. The main focus is the construction of a 3,000 square foot building up on Main Street. That would have would be a two-story building. The first floor would be 2 retail units. Could be broken up into 2 retail units. Could be 3,000 square feet of commercial space. The zoning is business redevelopment in front of the site. The middle of the site is B2, and then it transitions after the site into A2 zone. But the site is all commercial zone, either business redevelopment or B2. So there would be, the lower level would be commercial space, and then the upper level would be 2 residential units. Right now, they're planned to be two-bedroom units. Access to the site would be from Nye Road to a 18-car parking lot that would support the commercial and the residential use, be a single curb cut. We are showing a seasonal lot, and we did originally apply for the seasonal lot that would contain 35 spaces. That would be, was envisioned to be a gate access, a card access lot. In discussion with planning staff,
have asked us to remove that from this application, as it is not, currently not part of the main application, which is the new building and the supported parking. And the seasonal parking would require zoning board special permits. So they've asked us to remove it, have the board consider just the proposed building and the paved lot, and we're happy to do that, knowing that we would proceed to zoning board for that seasonal lot. So I guess if we could, based on that recommendation from staff, focus on the proposed building. I do have elevations of the proposed building. Here with the board, it does have a residential flair to the building and architecture. And as you can see from the front elevation, which is in the upper right, you've got the two what's envisioned to be retail spaces with the windowed residential units above. Again, very residential flair, but has the business storefronts and access directly to Main Street. And then in the back, we have stairs to the second level, additional access into the ground floor units, and as that would be access to the parking lot. Just running through the requirements for this board to consider in site plan review, and with regard to zoning compliance, it fully complies with all the zoning dimensional setbacks, the parking requirements. We've got provisions for trash removal that'll be a screened dumpster. We are providing the required buffers around the property, and we have included in the project plans a landscape plan that shows retention of some of the existing vegetation and plantings of new buffering. We are proposing some lighting. The lighting will be full cutoff and dark sky, and just at the levels that we need to illuminate the parking lot itself. There is, when looking at your bylaw, there are some conflicting sections with regard to access. There's a section that speaks to access, not accessing on a residential street, but there are other provisions that speak to accessing from that in a manner that will utilize less traffic congestion or realize less traffic congestion. So there's a little bit of a conflict there. And then when we look at the business redevelopment zone, there's a clear statement within the mission to promote the revitalization of commercial centers using mixed-use redevelopment, integrating retail, office, restaurant, community services with housing, such as second-floor apartments. The redevelopment fosters pedestrian-friendly streetscapes by requiring rear and side parking. So we drove for that with regards to the BR district and the building being in the BR district. We wanted the building to present itself on the street, be pedestrian-friendly, and to bring the parking around to the side on Nye Road. We've got a comprehensive stormwater management system. We know that there's some issues out in this area of Main Street with drainage. We are in receipt of comments from the engineering staff with regard to our stormwater calculations, and we'll be continuing to work with them to address those. But we are taking care of business on our site. We've got an underground infiltration system proposed under the paved parking area to handle that. So we'll be treating the stormwater, recharging it into the ground. We're connecting to the town sewer out in front on Main Street, town water for domestic and fire protection. The building will be sprinkled. So I think we've presented a plan that's in compliance and in keeping with both the general zoning bylaw and the business redevelopment district, and would ask the board look favorably upon this application. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Rich.
This is site plan, and so even though it bothers me that we're seeing 2 single-family rental units disappearing without knowing what they're going to be replaced with in terms of affordable housing, I don't think that's our call on site plan. Unfortunately, although that's a very important planning concern. However, I am specifically now concerning the site plan itself, where those 2 houses are going to go away, and there's going to be a parking lot there. I would be very concerned that there be real effective screening along that portion of Nye Road with just the opening into the parking area visible, and that the parking area not be visible to the residents across the street. I think that's something that we would have to insist on, and I think that's something we can in terms of the site plan.
Even though we're not really considering that now. That's going to come back.
Okay, that's going to come back, but I think that's going to have to be a sine qua non. On the other hand, in terms of site plan, that present lot is somewhat of a blight on Main Street, and this present building looks like it would be a good addition on that portion of the development. So, my comment.
Just, we have presented in our landscape plan a very healthy screen along the southerly boundary, and trees and some shrubbery along the entrance of that lot. So we're committed to that, and as it proceeds forward through the additional approvals it will require, we'll stay committed to that planting plan.
A little bit of planting.
Paul, you had a question?
I do have a question. There's some colloquial information that there's hazardous waste on the site. Have you addressed that?
We understand from the owner that it was addressed and it's clean.
It was addressed?
That it's been cleared by DEP, so the item has been closed out. We've been told that the monitoring wells on site can be removed, and there's no other issues.
Thank you.
Anyone else have questions, comments? Yes,
Yeah,
Bob?
I share Rich's concern about the loss of dwellings, even though it's not part of our purview under site plan review. I was wondering if you knew whether or not either of those units that are being lost are on the affordable inventory.
It will be.
The affordable inventory for the town.
I do not know.
This is going
I certainly
residential.
can check into that.
Okay.
Ralph?
Because
Marlene was shaking her head, no, they're not.
Oh, okay. Evidently, you don't need to, because our assistant knows that they're not affordable.
Thank you.
Further questions, comments? Yes.
I have a question. I don't know if it's right, but why do you need all the extra parking on the other lot? What's going on?
It is envisioned to be a pay lot, and also may come into play with a future project.
The only reason I bring it up, aren't we moving the lot line here to make the parking for this to fit? Is there a change in the lot line between these, between the zoning?
We're consolidating the lots into one
Well,
lot.
and the zoning changes with the lot line or further in? Where does the zoning change from business redevelopment to residential? Can you show me where that line changes?
The zone line is here, That's the A2, B2 zone,
Okay,
and then the B2, BR zone is here.
okay.
What is the green area?
That's not for us.
The green is grass,
That's the future project.
Yes, so what is that area zoned now?
B2,
That's all B2 then?
yes.
It's all B2 with a buffer to the, looks like to the south.
The B2, A2 zone is along the property line, and there's a requirement for a 15-foot buffer in zoning,
And you have that.
and we have it.
Other board questions? Or comments? Okay, does anyone from the public? Ms. Hayward.
I'm Nancy Hayward. I live in West Falmouth. I've lived there for about 42 years. I'm a town meeting member for Precinct 5. I'm the vice chairman of the Falmouth Historical Commission. I'm not here representing the Historical Commission. This specific plan has not been before the Historical Commission.
Or does it need to be?
I guess I had a little trouble from back there sort of viewing this sort of sketchy plan of this project. I guess when I first saw this number, whatever the 587 Main Street, I thought, oh, I know what this lot is going to be. But I got my brain straightened out with the help of various people that I talked to. And so my questions in my mind seem to be, is this all part of some larger plan? Is this something that's being brought forth in some kind of a piecemeal fashion? I'm familiar with this redevelopment zoning, which began quite a long time back. It began when Ken Swartz was the chairman of the ZBA. And at that time, I took a bunch of photographs along the north side of Main Street from Gifford Street east, as far as Harriet Dugan's house at 598 Main Street. Because Harriet Dugan's house is listed on Falmouth's Cultural Resources Inventory and also listed on Massachusetts Cultural Resources Inventory. And I thought this was going to turn out to be the lot next to Harriet Dugan's house. And it's the lot across the street. And I'm glad that someone brought up the fact that we're losing 2 houses that have people living in them. And of course, this is rental property, so we haven't heard from the owner. And are they affordable? I don't know. Whether they're on the listing or not, they may be affordable housing. So we're putting, I understand, I'm being told that I'm getting off course.
Right.
But I think it's pertinent because you're the planning board, and I think besides the lines on the ground, you need to think about what this brings forth. And I didn't quite get the answer to about whether or not this is a brownfield. Was there some, were there some numbers quoted that this is all cleaned up here?
The applicant has asserted that the DEP has closed the site.
I'm terribly sorry, I do have a bad cold and I'm rather deaf.
Oh, I'm sorry. The applicant has asserted that the DEP
Okay.
has closed the site and therefore allowed development to proceed. This is, I believe, paraphrasing.
Once we're being told by the owner.
You're being told that by the owner.
We have a report.
Okay,
The
All right.
response action outcome from DEP shows the site
And-
further.
thank you, okay.
When I look at this and it has Ryan, well, I guess it's not supposed to matter to me who the owner of the lot is. So we have the redevelopment zoning. In the area, we have historic house, and we have Nye Road. And I will say that Nye Road was a street which was surveyed by the Falmouth Historical
Way up,
Commission
please.
as part
Nancy,
of.
I'm going to have to
It is-
shut you
it
off
is-
on this because
It is on Nye Road, which is a residential street, which was surveyed by the Falmouth Historical Commission. This is a residential area, and I understand that there is B2 zoning
it's
there.
B2 zoning.
But,
And we are seeing this under site plan review.
correct, all right. I figure I might as well say what I want to say at this point. I might
But it does not
later,
have
and I
any
think I have
historic
covered
implications.
everything that I wanted to bring
Okay.
forth on this. Thank you very much for your time.
Is there anyone else from the public? Please come up and state your name.
My name's Gary Gerard. I'm the homeowner at 28 Nye Road, so right across the street. I live there with my wife and my 2 young children, and I know there's some other neighbors here, because I think our biggest concern, at least from my point of view, is traffic flow, and I don't know if there's been a study yet of the effects of traffic on our road, but it is a residential street. It's a very quaint residential street. We don't want it used as a cut-through. My children are always playing in the street. There's not a lot of traffic now. Thankfully, we don't get a lot of cut-throughs. So my biggest concern, although we may not be able to stop development of the properties, which is not my point, is the way that the traffic is handled. And I think that that's the big concern from my house. And also, it sounds like they're taking into account the view out our dining room window, which is, we're literally located right here, and our dining room window looks out at this whatever this parking lot thing is. So we just want to make sure that the board's aware that, yeah, it does affect people on the street. And as long as you pay attention to that and take care of us, that's all. I just want to make sure my concerns were heard.
Okay, so what I'm getting from your comments, that you're concerned about the amount of traffic that will be added to the street
Yes.
and potentially look at ways to mitigate that.
Look at all these parking spaces.
I'm looking at that. Okay, I'm looking at that. And I know that they had brought up the discussion as to whether the entrance should be off of Main Street or off of Nye Road while they were presenting this to us. It is currently designed that the entrance is off of Nye.
Yeah, the people are gonna know, and I don't know how much traffic this retail establishment will create, but there should be some traffic study of some sort to know how many people are gonna start coming down, new traffic that's gonna come down, and maybe compare that with a traffic study today versus what we anticipate, because I think it will affect the neighborhood, is what I'm saying.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public? Yes, sir.
My name is Keith Schwagel. I'm at 26 Queen Street. I just heard about this the other day, and not necessarily against the project, but I'd like to voice what the gentleman there said, seconded. Queen Street's becoming another Main Street, and then when you add 18-car parking lot that's coming in and out on Nye Road, as we all know, the cut-through will happen. We already on Queen Street have the Church Street, that is not an official street that everybody uses to cut, that's their parking lot cut through. So we're inundated with traffic there. if we add, I heard a 35-space seasonal lot somewhere, and that's not your concern here, I understand, but you can start seeing the traffic start increasing exponentially on Nye Road, Queen Street becomes a cut-through, and then probably Allen Street as well. While the project is probably good in itself, it's a terrible-looking lot. If they could do something with the parking, where it's not coming in and out on Nye Road, to maybe minimize the traffic, as the other gentleman talked about, would be most helpful. So that's the main concern of what I would have in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Jerry Smith. I own this property that abuts this entire buffer, so you can imagine my concerns are great. I spoke to the developers, and I'm not as concerned as I was, and listening to you guys, I'm definitely not concerned, because I feel like you have our interest in the neighborhood at bay. You seem to be watching it as close as I wanted to. I don't know if that came out like I wanted it to, but the property that's there now, this is better. However, it is residential, and I don't think we're taking this into concern tonight, from what I understood at the beginning. So basically, I wanted to come up and let you know, this is all my property that butts this. I'm here. I'll make every meeting, but as of right now, I'm not really, I don't have anything to light on fire and yell and scream about, to be honest with you. But I am watching it closely, and when the lot does come up, I'll absolutely be there. And they've been more than willing to answer every question I've had so far. But as a neighborhood, I mean, if you know this property, I put some heavy blood, sweat, and tears into that property, and I plan on planting myself here for the rest of my life in 10 years. Hopefully my boss isn't watching. But Falmouth is my home, and it's going to be my full-time home very soon. So I'm appreciative of you watching, and appreciative of the development company too. So I just want to get on the record as I'm here, I'm interested, and I don't really have any major concerns right now.
Okay, thanks.
Madam Chair?
Thank you.
Little perspective, history, and then a comment. I grew up in 28 Nye Road. I live there. I'm very familiar with the neighborhood, and I am one of the few people who do use Nye Road as a cut-through. That's because I always did, ever since I got my driver's license. And I can tell you that what had been on the corner there historically was 2 gas stations. We used to call it Gasoline Alley, but, you know. Also across the street was a taxi business, and I worked for them. So I'm very familiar with the area and the use that's been in there. And like I said, this building would certainly be a much more attractive building than anything that had ever been on that corner. So that's part of it. And taking the traffic off of Nye Road is certainly consistent with our concern for, curb cuts on Main Street, taking the traffic off of Main Street. So that's kind of making it kind of difficult for me. I'd feel a lot better about it if we knew that what kind of business there was going to be in there. I mean, like different kinds of businesses have different kinds of traffic generation. I'd feel an awful lot better if I knew that what was going to happen on that lower portion, that southern portion, was going to be perhaps some multifamily residential. I think that would be, an enhancement, but consistent with the zoning. But one thing I think we could do, perhaps within our power on site plan, that would alleviate some of this concern, is make sure that those exits from those parking areas are all left turn only, so that they have to go back to Main Street. Now, that would be something that would be within our power on site plan, and that would alleviate the concern for the traffic going down Nye Road. So.
Okay, is there anyone else from the public who wishes to make any comments on this. Please come up to the podium.
My name's Jay Kenny. I'm representing Johnson Electric, so I'm coming at it from another angle. We're right here, and obviously, without a building there, we have high visibility at this point. So our only concern is, if you could come up and maybe describe a little bit of how you're going to address the abutting. I can see a stockade fence. I'm just wondering how far that fence is going to come out. We have an existing sign out near the road. And my concern is people not being able to see our sign as they're coming down from the Dunkin' Donuts end, and just if it's going to be business friendly, if both properties are going to flow together and work with each other, as far as rather than have some big monstrosity stuck up there and we're stuck in the back, where people know where we are now. We're quite visible. Throw up a building, and again, I'm not opposed to it at all. And like everyone said, certainly better than a vacant lot. And we lost poor Chef Anthony. He hasn't been there for a few years. But anyway, if you could just address that, that'd be great.
On the landscaping plan, the stockade fence ends in the back corner of the building. And there's plantings in between, proposed plantings in between our two structures.
We talk.
Is there anyone else who wishes to comment from the public? Okay, thank you. They've been listening very attentively, and you've said they're very cooperative to this point, too, so I appreciate your input on that. Jim?
I believe 240 has specific uses, so I'm assuming they're going to fall in with that. We don't have to question that.
No, the uses aren't in front of you, it's just a plan review.
Okay. And then I particularly think that this part of Main Street is desperate, and the reason why the building is set closer to the street is exactly why 240 was written, because that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to encourage the strip along Main Street to be pedestrian-friendly and not be parking, and you've done that. You've got a parking lot, a walkway through it. The pedestrians can use it. I think it will be a huge improvement. And as far as site plan review, I think it's pretty creative. The only thing that has any question at all is no curb cut on Main Street and bring it on the side, and it sounds like they're working hard to mitigate any issues that brings. So I think it's a big improvement, a huge improvement, actually. Mm-hmm. And I like the building's design with its detail, although that's not our issue.
Does anyone else have comments on this? Okay, then we'll take this up for discussion at, I assume, our next meeting?
Correct.
And that will be, do you have a date on that?
Not yet.
May 6th?
Which day? What's the date?
May 6th,
Next week, right?
yes, next week. So, thank you all for coming for this. We'll see you May 6th, I assume.
I wish I knew what the other use was. I think I do, though.
Yeah.
Because of who's here. The property owner across the street is here.
Although, if I'm living there, I do want to go down.
What? You guys living in your house, huh?
Yeah, parking
Okay, we move on now to discussion. And tonight, our discussion is on the goals and policies for the coastal resiliency, which is part of the local comprehensive plan. Could I ask you to move down the hall if you're going to have discussions so that we can hear in here? Thank you very much. As background for this, the local comprehensive plan subcommittee, which is, as you know, Jim and Bob and me, and we started discussing land use as an element, which it currently exists as land use. And it became quite obvious that the coastal part of it really deserved an element of its own, particularly when you bring into account resiliency. Because the other land uses are quite different than how we may have to look at the coastal area. We discussed that, and then it also became very obvious as we discussed it that you cannot just take, say, 500 feet back from the coastline or whatever arbitrary measurement you want to put in there and call that coastal. The whole community is coastal. We are, if anything happens to our coastline, as a community, we are all affected. So we've expanded it as a committee for coastal, named Coastal Resiliency, to incorporate the whole of the town, because there would be precious little part of this town that would not be affected by the coastline in one way or another. So tonight, we're looking for your input on, excuse me, on the goal, which is that first statement at the top, and then we have 4 policies. Looking at the sense of it, if you agree with that, don't agree, want to add, or not. So we're looking for your input on that before we go further. At our next meeting, which is tomorrow, we will start looking at the action items, but we want your input on the goal and the policies first. Do you guys have anything else to add to what I just stated?
No, I think,
as an
waiting to
introduction?
Some
Okay,
input.
Rich.
I'm reading here in the third paragraph down, the very last sentence, the location or relocation of water main, sewer lines, and roadways must be evaluated with respect to vulnerability. The most cogent argument I've heard, and I've been talking with people against question 1, the proposed sewering of Little Pond, is that in 20 years, there's not going to be any houses there anyway. And I'm wondering how much of a handle we have on that question. You know, we're talking about a very expensive sewering project. I don't know what, that's question 1, but the question on sewering Little Pond is the one that people are concerned about. And what is going to happen to those houses?
We don't know at this point. That's one of the reasons for this statement here, is that this is forward-looking to 50 or 100 years. So, you know, you put on your Karnak hat or your...
Well, what I'm asking here is, I mean, this is an issue that's out there right now. It's going to be going to a vote. And this committee is saying the location of sewer lines must be evaluated with respect to vulnerability. So is that a position on this issue that's before the town?
No,
Well,
not at all.
Okay, well, I'm just...
This came up in respect to, how many times have we had to dig up the bicycle path?
I understand that.
Okay.
But
And we're looking at the same kind of thing as the coastline becomes more and more vulnerable. And this is the immediate coastline. So that's what's instigating this statement.
okay.
Also, too, we don't know if 20 years from now that those houses will be gone. 20 years from now, they could all be on stilts. One of the issues that we've grappled with is we can't dictate what private property owners will do. They still own their property. If that house is sitting with a foot of water below its foundation, then that's them. What we're looking at is what the town can do as far as the government, the operation of the government, where we place our facilities and our town development. That's what we're looking at. We can't predict what private homeowners will do.
No, but the issue here is where we place a sewer line, which would be our department, is going to, you know, bearing that expense has a relationship to what is going to happen to those private properties. I mean, there's a relationship there, so.
I'm trying to go from memory, but I don't believe that the sewer goes all the way down and across Grand Ave. I think the sewer is set back a couple of houses because they're reliant on the the flushing of the ocean being close. So your point is really not on target right now. We've got a lot of coastline, 2 rows of houses and a couple of streets before it becomes an issue. This language that we put in here relates to the bike path that's on the water that's been knocked out several times by it, and that's what we're talking about. That's a future point which we're going to have to deal with.
See, I am in favor of the project, I spoke strongly in favor of it at town meeting, and I'm playing devil's advocate here because I see this language in this policy statement. So, and I'd like to know what...
It relates to Woods Hole, to the bike path is where, specifically, and when the houses are gone, the street's gone, and we're 3 rows up, then your point will be well taken, but that's a long ways away, and our plan is to be adaptive, to be ready for when that comes.
And we also know that roads are going to be washed away. Surf Drive has already been washed away.
Absolutely.
So we know this is going to happen. And it's a discussion that has to happen. The whole point of this is we're not making the decisions on this. We are saying we've got to think ahead. We may have to change some zoning bylaws on certain things. That's our part of it. But there are other entities that will be taking part of this whole discussion, and making the decisions as well. It's not just going to be us. What our job here is to put forth policies that the entities that are dealing with the infrastructure in the town will be looking at as guidance for their decision-making.
And we also know from our discussions that situations that occur like in Galveston and other coastal communities that have essentially been wiped out have been brought back. People still want to come back. And to say that something happens and they don't, we can't predict that. I think you have to assume that human beings are still going to want to build where they want to build and live where they want to live. And they will face those challenges and meet those challenges.
You see that on the south side of Surf Drive, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, Pat, is coastal resiliency now one of the elements in the local comprehensive plan?
that is correct. We are
That's a-
separating it out.
It's a new one?
New one.
Okay, all right. All of this makes sense to me. It gets back to how do you do these things? In the first page there, the middle paragraph, the third paragraph down, I underlined the things that require action. Restoring and enlarging wetlands and marshes, location and relocation of water mains, sewer lines, and roadways. And then as you go down farther, in the last paragraph, building to mitigate failure. I'm guessing that would be a code thing with the building commissioner. Build local networks and skill sets. I don't know how you do that. And analyzing existing vulnerabilities. That sounds like a study that needs to be done. So, I mean, these are good things to consider. I'm just wondering how these things can be achieved.
You're on target with your comments, Ralph. They will be achieved over maybe 20 years.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen tomorrow. And that's the reason for this forward-looking. That is the reason that we chose to make this so long-term as well.
Right, I'm just wondering if by saying, you know, restoring and enlarging wetlands and marshes under the guidance of the Conservation Commission, or you know, saying the location and relocation of water mains, sewer mains, and roadways under the guidance of the department, the DPW. I mean, I don't know whether that makes sense to get that specific, but that's laying the responsibility of these of these changes on somebody.
That comes in the action items,
Yep.
Okay.
which we don't have here yet. We wanted
Right.
to get your
Yeah,
input tonight.
Okay. As long as that's being considered. Okay, all right, I like what you've got there so far.
The goal statement, it took us a while to come up with that. Yes, Paul?
You know, I'd just like to mention, I think the committee, Pat, Jim, Bob, and Marlene have done a good job with this thing. There's a lot of very, very difficult issues here, and this is pretty comprehensive. The issue I had was with private property, and Bob addressed that. I think that would be the biggest issue I had. But secondly, what I don't see in here, enlarging wetlands, is also beach nourishment. That's something we've talked about, and I think that should also be incorporated into here, and I don't see that part of it in here.
That could be another action item as well.
Actually, it's policy number one. It's policy number one. If you expand upon that into an action item.
Right.
Well, I think it would be specific.
Well,
That's when
what
you
you
go
have
to an
to,
action
what you
item.
have to read here is this is a big, wide view, and we're only laying out the policies, but they're supposed to be wide enough to incorporate any of those action items that come later that change over time, but that's the whole idea.
But you are specific here, you specifically talk about wetlands and marshes.
Right.
So I'm saying, well, there's beaches too.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
So you are being specific. I understand where you're going with it, but I just want to make that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it definitely has come into our thinking. I mean, when you look at Sandy, Hurricane Sandy, the communities that were less affected are those that had the dunes. You know, behind the protection of the dunes, they were very much less affected.
A good friend of mine has a house right on the beach, and he had a dune in front of him, and he said after Sandy, he could look into the water, but his house was not damaged because of the dune.
Right.
And New Jersey does have a program of continually nourishing the beaches, which we do not have.
I know we don't, and that's something we're going to have to be looking at within the action items. So, I mean, you're bringing this up, and this is, yeah, no, you're bringing this up, and what Ralph brought up too, these are all parts of the action items, so we're getting your input tonight insofar as action items go too, based upon what we've given you with the introduction, the goal, and the policies. Yeah,
I agree,
Doug.
though. I think that, since how you have stated, you know, expanding marshes and so forth, I would like to see a line about the beach nourishment, because it's an important component.
You mean within the body of the explanation?
Yeah, if you could find a spot for it, yeah, I think.
Sure we can.
Absolutely.
And I like the whole thing is well done, and I like the fact that we're not only addressing infrastructure, but it's going to be a cultural change and be ready for it.
It's going to be very difficult.
Right.
We all recognize that. This is why you cannot take a, well, it's going to happen next year viewpoint.
Right.
It just isn't. But if we keep this in front of us, and this is the goal line that we're all moving towards, hopefully it'll work that way. Paul?
I think the importance of this is to raise the issue in front of the public and others. And you're starting to do this here, but people talk about it and they forget about it. So I think it's important to have a policy and a program that includes this in the local comprehensive plan. I think it's very important.
That's why we separated it out. We thought it was that important, too. Okay? Do you have anything other that you want to add to these policies or any changes? Yes?
I just wanted to say, you know, we've been talking about this for a long time, and all your comments have been brought up, and they'll definitely get in there. But, you know, where we build and what we build is important. If we want to have a strong, vibrant community, we've got to start to plan on how we're going to deal with resiliency across the board. Not just only in the structures, but also on our political and civic responsibilities. You know, we want to have neighborhoods that can deal with it, people that help each other, put affordable housing in the right places, have, you know, walking communities. We really need to think about all those things and be able to learn every time. One of the things we have a coastal community, when things, if we do face things getting knocked down, we always have an opportunity to rebuild them and rebuild them smarter. So the idea is to take advantage of everything that's been learned in Sandy and all the other hurricanes and storms and try to integrate that into our planning. We're not going to take away people's property But we need to plan for the future, and we think the town should be a leader in that, including its location of its own facilities in the future. So those are the discussions we've had, and I was glad to hear all your points, because believe me, they've all been brought up many, many times on our meetings.
And just, one of you brought up the meaning of local networks. We actually have some that are going on here right now. Neighborhood Falmouth is a very good example. But we also want to, let's see, and I also remember reading, I think it was in one of the North Falmouth communities, where they had sort of a neighborhood watch for the elderly people who lived in their own homes, so that if a shade didn't go up in the morning, a neighbor would check. So that kind of thing, so that you build up individual neighborhoods and encourage that building up through the social networking. That's what we meant by that. And if we can encourage it in any way as a community, we should be doing that. And that's the same kind of thing with skill sets too. And I know Neighborhood Falmouth has people with certain skills that can be sent out to help other people. So that's the kind of thing that we meant by that.
And what we want to get across about resiliency is the ability to bounce back, where a community is prepared to take a hit and not get wiped out. We don't want to lose 50% of the population if we get hit by a hurricane or something like that. We want to have policies and things in place so that we can take a hit and we can function fairly quickly after something. And we discussed this about the local government. How quickly can the local government respond, whether it's having the building inspector being able to issue permits on for rebuilding, and the fire department to function with its 911 system, the police to be able to respond. These are the types of things that we're also looking at, is being able to absorb the kind of hit that a Sandy or a Katrina type storm would impact us with.
So do we have a resilient communications network within the government structure in town? We have to look at that for survivability, I guess would be better almost in that case. In my mind, the picture came up that we've got 2 bridges to Cape Cod. If we had a Cat 3 hurricane, those bridges could come down, and then we would truly be an island. Now you're talking survivability, so that's the kind of visioning that we're looking at. How do we survive for the short term? How do we survive for the long term? How are we resilient to withstand the impact of that kind of thing? So, anybody else have further comments on this? And please know that at any time, based upon tonight's discussion or monologue in some cases, let us know your further thoughts on this too. We'll obviously come back to you with action items as well, so we have multiple opportunities to weigh in on this. We are anticipating it, bringing this up to fall town meeting.
I want to just describe the process that, as I recall, and we've discussed it, that we're putting together goals and policies as a group. We bring that to the planning board as a whole, then the planning board takes that to the selectmen and goes to town meeting. So those goals and policies are what gets approved. The action items can be added and subtracted and don't have to go back to town meeting every single time. They can be, we can come up with an action item and assign it to a group like the DPW, they finish it and a new one comes in. The whole plan doesn't get rewritten. The only things that we do are the goals and policies. We bring them to the planning board as a group, and then we take them to the selectmen, and then together we take them to town meeting. And the action items are done by the town manager and the operations of the town to fulfill those goals and policies. So that's where some of the beach nourishment and other things can fit the wider goal that we discussed, Paul. So we tried not to be specific, but in our minds it was there, is what I'm saying.
We can't be that specific in goal and policies.
After it goes to town meeting, it was approved, then it doesn't have to go to the Cape Cod Commission?
Not until we're totally done with it. And they do not have to approve our comprehensive plan. The goal is that they will approve it. But, you know, if we were following their demands, we would have had this done 5 years ago. And it isn't done. We are just wanting to make it right for the town.
Yeah, I understand.
And then when it is right for the town, then it will go to the Cape Cod Commission, and we hope that they will approve it based upon that. I also want to take this opportunity to thank Marlene tremendously, because it's, in my mind, very important that the comprehensive plan be written with one voice. And she has done the writing of this. She takes the notes based upon what we're saying, and she writes it up, then we bring it back and hash it over. And so she has done the writing of the introduction and the goal and the policies, and it has been consistent through the ones that have already been approved. And so I want to take this opportunity to thank her tremendously for the effort she does.
Spotlight on talent.
I'd have to say, I feel like I'm going to a training course working with Marlene. She gives us homework assignments, reading assignments, which I've done them all, by the way. I am covered. I got everything read that you just sent us yesterday and the day before, so.
Okay, we'll move on now to general correspondence, and there is one thing in here. The town of Bourne is requesting a waiver of notice for 2 zoning articles for Bourne's town meeting on May 5th, 2014. And you may recall that this has come up in the past. We've had to ask forgiveness because we hadn't noticed these things properly, and Mashpee has asked forgiveness in the past, and we were giggling about yanking their chain and not giving forgiveness, but so we have to vote on that we approve a waiver of notice for Bourne on the 2 articles. I don't know if you want.
What is the subject of the article?
Pardon?
What is the subject of the article?
Of the articles, let's see. Amending the Bourne zoning map for the village of South Sagamore. And this one is amending the the Bourne zoning map about a floodplain overlay district. You know, these things happen, and there's a map here too, if anybody wants to see it, but these things happen that policy is not necessarily, not purposely not followed, but it happens. And so then they have to ask forgiveness on it, as we've done in the past.
You sure they didn't vote to take any of our land?
No, I don't think so.
So is it because those particular parcels abut Falmouth? Is
No.
that the reason?
I don't know, I don't think
I
so.
think that's
They have to notify the abutting towns when they do that.
Any zoning article within your community, you have to notify the abutting towns, planning boards, the regional planning agency, and state.
So no, it doesn't. No, so I would need a motion that we, what are the words there? Again, approve a waiver.
Waive the requirement of notice?
That we approve a waiver of notice.
I'll second.
No, you can't second it until I get a,
I'll move it.
I thought he did make a motion.
you did?
I did, if you didn't.
Half-heartedly.
I'll give you a half.
I need a whole heart.
Doug moved it.
Okay, Doug moved it, Ralph seconded it. And if there is any discussion, may I hear it now? And if not, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so then I need, nope, we go to, does anybody have any items for future agendas? Paul?
I hate to say that, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but here we have a meeting again tonight where we have a development on Main Street. We've been talking for 6 months about Cape Cod Commission. I know you've requested scope of work for them to do something, but we've had 2 of them very recently, and I think we need to push that so we start looking at it as a whole issue. Jim's lecturing me about policy. That's part of the policy. I understand the need for doing that, but I'd like to encourage someone to move forward with the scope of work, because we continually get these projects being developed and we don't know how they fit in with the overall plan.
On East Main, I will, I put an email out, and I will have information for you at your next meeting.
Thank you.
It's not that it's been dropped, Paul. We just
No,
have
but-
not heard from them.
But if we don't start moving along, we're going to approve all these projects.
Yeah, without a plan in place.
Piecemeal.
Without the
That's
plan,
right.
Then we get a plan and say, oh, we shouldn't have done that. And I
Right.
don't think we want to be in that situation.
I agree with you. Okay. It's time for adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No general correspondence?